Good evening, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of Zemedia, and I'm so happy to be able to bring you Crime Crunchies tonight. Hey guys, happy Sunday. I hope you all had a great day. I started a little bit later tonight than I wanted to, and really quick. You know what? I did not think I was going to have members, but you know what? I've got 8 members, 8 members. And so, oopsie, let me get this down here. I always have a feedback here. So I have 8 members, and I don't expect anybody to. I love anyone who just subscribes, but I'm tickled to death that I've got 8 members. And so I have added badges and so as you go on 1 month and 2 months and things like that, let me share some of them. And then I also made some emojis for folks. And these are gonna be hard to see because they're really tiny. The pixel sizes are really small. So I'll blow it up. But basically, 1 month in, you'll get a 1 month in the Cool Kids Club. 2 months, you'll get 2 months in the Cool Kids Club, then 6 months, etc. But I did make some emojis, and I have to say, this one is really just, I cannot believe how many people commented about mayonnaise last night after in the replay crew. So this is really pixelated because it's super small, but it says Miracle Whip is not mayonnaise. And this is an actual emoji. You're not in trouble for becoming members. No, no, no. Anybody, I love everybody. I just don't want anyone to feel like I expect anyone to spend any money on just me. I do this because I love doing this. I do not want anybody to, feel like they have to do anything. I do this out of passion. So we've got Miracle Whip is not mayonnaise. This is a new emoji. I do have Zosha, the crime fighting kitty. I have Detective Zosha. And then I do have a Cool Kids Club as well. I'll probably add more emojis. So anyway, kind of silly, but there you go. I thought I would just do something fun. So before we get started, looks like some of you have watched Monks Intrigue video. I have not. And so it'll be real reaction, at least for me, but I want you guys to chat it up, okay? I wanted to point out that I actually covered this interview, and I believe he's doing the Savannah interview with Hoda. I did my own analysis back on May 9th. Let me put the link in here. So if some of you are new and you feel like you want to go back and watch, I consider myself like an empath. I don't know how accurate I am, but I feel like I can read people, and so I have maybe a different take than what Monks is doing. But this is one I did on May 19th, and I also wanted to point out that if you go to this, it looks like on this one, it went away. But on this video, literally, I had 2 people in chat. I had Joe, who literally has been around forever, and then Nature Walk. So it was really pitiful. There were many times when I started this out, I was literally talking. I had no one. I was literally live like this, talking to no one. So you know how much I appreciate all of you guys being here. You have no idea. I'm just so tickled that I even have as many people as are as have been coming and hanging out with me, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys. So all right, with that, let me take this down because I need to get my audio going. All right, and while I'm doing this, if you are new, just subscribe. We're a pretty cool group. We've got a lot of regulars. And you know what? It's nice to have a little community. We're a little weird. We have a sense of humor. We take this very seriously, but we know how to keep things light. All right. So again, and I did want to say, if you guys have not watched this video, I don't want to take any video views away from Monks because he worked very hard on doing this. Just after this tonight, if you haven't watched it already, just go in and give him a view for, as long as you want to rewatch it, just so he gets views. I don't want to take anything from him. I do appreciate all of his hard work. So without further ado, let's get in and see what he has to say. I'm so excited. Thanks for being the watch party, you guys. This is fun. All right, let me do it again. Share screen. Let me do it again. Let me make sure I hit my sound. I think I know what I did. I think I know what I did. I think I chose the wrong one.
This is from her
Let me know
own
if you
words.
can hear it now.
We old broads never forget to take our nighttime medicine. Dottie is referring to the nagging narrative that Nancy didn't take her 10 p.m. heart medicine. Now, just to be clear, okay, for Dottie and anyone listening, Nancy missing her 10 p.m. medicine came about first as just a concern, right? At those press conferences that Nanos had, okay, when everybody was wondering about her well-being and the fact that they found meds still in her house, more so than that being an actual fact. I really don't like expanding on something that hasn't yet been confirmed. Why so much people have placed an importance to this 10 p.m. dosage is clear to me, at least. To Dottie's point, if Nancy is anything like her and never misses her nighttime medicine, then Nancy missing it can present a pretty scary possibility that if Nancy is dropped off at 9:48 p.m. and family sees her in the house, as stated by Sheriff Nanos, that could mean that the nightmare for Nancy Guthrie possibly could have begun as soon as the garage door closes at 9:50 p.m. Something happening in the house that caused her to miss her 10 p.m. medication. So that is the aspect of the case that remains, intriguing if it ever comes out. So as of now, that information is unconfirmed. If you believe that you have confirmed it, hey, let us know where to look it up, what official page, and you know what, I'll be happy to do so. And if you think about it, if the police have already counted the pills, say, or maybe Nancy's pill organizers,
I think we all have questions whether she took her 10 p.m. medicine because, if she got home at 9:50, she might have, I don't know. That's another reason why I mentioned or had a show on whether she even made it home. Again, I feel like she did, but anyway. And I know that there's some folks talking about sharing other people's stuff. This is a scheduled watch party. This is, maybe something that we do. We're doing a watch party. And yeah, I do use other content. And you know what? That's okay.
Still has January 31st in it. I can't imagine the detectives ruling out that the whole thing that we saw with the crotch holster guy on Nancy's front porch, other than being staged, because if Nancy was already in trouble at 10 p.m., then the whole thing concerning that guy really has to look staged. Just a while back, I made a video called Devices, and that was just to highlight how Nancy's devices more than likely reveals that she did make it home that night.
That's right.
From Annie's house, that the family's timeline that they gave to Pima County should check out, in terms of just cell phone tower triangulation and GPS tracking alone. Now, I assume most of us has been following the Nancy Guthrie case for a long time now, if not from the very beginning. Okay, so it should come to no surprise to us by now how little about family and how absent they are in terms of looking for and speaking out for Nancy. Now, if you guys have been following the Nolan Wells case, like I have been in the background, then you will see how, I should not say how loved ones should behave, but they behave more along the lines of what I'll say for me, okay, would expect loved ones to grieve and demand answers, okay? Desperate for the public to help them, okay? You have a wife and a husband, hand in hand, telling everyone they can about what they know, sharing as much as possible about what they learned from the police, every facet of the case, and especially sharing everything about who the deceased was so that the public gets a better understanding, that we can relate, and maybe they can get answers about, the person that is no longer with us and possibly why they are no longer with us. Imagine if A and T felt the need to do this And at the same time, we have to wonder why A&T did not feel the need to do this, which hopefully they will clarify one day. So in terms of Nolan Wells' parents, right, they're doing the media rounds to make sure that Nolan stays in the public eye, even though the story has already gone viral. Now, in terms of the Nolan Wells case in particular, if you're wondering why I haven't talked about this case just yet, if I've been following it, right, because to me, Nolan Wells' autopsy has already been done, and I would like to wait to see what it reveals, right? I'm not going in to the story while it's in the phase of, it just feels like race baiting at the time. It feels like there's just too many conspiracy theories. There's a footage out of an argument at a lake.
So there's some discussion about the 10 p.m. meds that Monks was just talking about. And the thing is I think this could be one of those things that once it gets picked up on a couple different shows, that it starts just becoming fact, air quote facts. I can't tell you what shows. It could be Ashley Banfield. It could be whatever, because we've been doing this for 5 months. I can't point to a certain show, but and we might be wrong on a whole bunch of this. So let's all just know that we're speculating, and nobody is accusing anyone. No one is coming with facts, because we don't know until the very end. And we're all here just praying that we get a final answer on this whole thing. And we're here just trying to work it out in our minds because we care.
And the first thing that came to my mind, like a lot of us, is this doctored? Is this AI? I don't know what I can believe, so I'm waiting for more official statements. And especially if the family is going to do a second private autopsy, just to make sure everything is on the up and up, and just to make sure all the stories align. And after saying all that, we could compare and contrast. What did we get in the Nancy Guthrie case in terms of the last two known people, right? A husband and a wife, to have seen Nancy alive? I feel all we got was a planned memorial walk that felt more about Savannah backing Annie and Tommaso, because of course the public is looking at them with suspicious eyes, just as much about them as it was about Nancy. And not one statement to the media that was recording them, that was out there. I would say that was a perfect opportunity to give thanks, even to show outrage at the accusations, right? They could share details of what they did that Saturday night and how fun it was, the route they used to take her home. Everything was hunky-dory. Where they dropped Nancy off, just get.
And I don't want to stop too much, but this is a reaction video, and I do want to react even, just as you guys are chatting and reacting as well. But I have to think, honestly, that they've been asked not to talk. And I think that they've been given a lot of advice by feds, negotiators, because again, this is something that they're just going through, brand new, and they don't know how to act. And considering she is a celebrity, I think that she's been asked not to comment. So I'm going to give them grace, because, this is a horrible thing. And hey, Joe, Joe, we got to talking, and really quick, I was pointing everybody to my May 9th video where I did an analysis of the Savannah and Hoda interview. And you and one other person were literally the only ones in the chat. So I have to say, Joe is the OG Crime Crunchy cool kid. So I have to give you a shout out, and you'll get a new badge, Joe, for 2 months on your thingy-majiggy. So
into details, okay? Because if everybody in the family and their acquaintances are innocent, then nothing about that phase of the story,
yes, Joe,
should be
two
held
people
back. I also want to touch on the fact that it was also a great moment to give a description of who Nancy is. This memorial walk is about Nancy, right? Well, go ahead and tell us, okay, what she was like when she was there. Make us feel like we know this lady that we have been searching for, okay? However, instead, the trio just walks away, never once acknowledging the media, looking into the camera to acknowledge the public.
But at the same time, I honor that because they wanted to come out and see the memorial. And it's not like, they're not like regular people where, I mean, they're going to be flocked by media. The entire street was flooded with media. So again, they wanted to come out and lay flowers. I thought it was, again, I'm suspicious. All right. We all are. But at the same time, I'm going to give them grace. It's a horrible thing.
Also, don't want us to forget that we have not heard from friends or acquaintances of Nancy.
Church lady.
Where are Nancy's church friends? The concerned church friends that called Annie that morning. And it's puzzling, somewhat understandable at the same time, because I want to be reasonable about people's actions. And even if it looks suspicious, okay? The fact that Brian Enton revealed that.
Yeah, and I agree with the thank you, especially after there were YouTubers who I absolutely support. I donated to 857 Tucson. I missed the one for Alex, but I did donate twice to 857 Tucson. It would have been nice for her to have come out when at that time there was no legacy media covering her mother at all. And the YouTubers were the only ones. I feel like it was a sticky situation for her, and she probably was painted into a corner and couldn't come out and say thank you to the YouTubers that got arrested because they were on the street when there are clearly signs and the neighbors are complaining. She's in a situation, Annie and Cam are in a situation where they don't want the neighbors hating them any more than, some neighbors are really irritated by this. Some neighbors want the attention, but think about it. They're in a hard spot with the neighbors having dealt with, a media frenzy for a month. And, and I'm sure that she appreciates the YouTubers keeping the story alive when no one else was. It wasn't until Howard Bloom's note on the second ransom note that just came out that anybody even picked it up again. It was just nowhere. So I know it would be, I agree. It'd be nice to hear thank you, for those guys that literally went to jail.
These people are asked to remain quiet. That family has asked those people to just not talk about it. Not to say that this case is equal to that of Nolan Wells.
Okay,
I understand the difference, but I don't think I was wrong to expect Annie and Tommaso to do the media rounds early on, just like Nolan's mom and dad is doing right now. But it's been 5 months. Nancy is still missing, and it doesn't look like we're any closer to answers. That makes it still a great opportunity to get in front of the camera, address your concerns, address your frustrations, your anger even at the public, thank the ones that are on your side, and just show us you're human, right? Show us the humanity, because as of right now, we don't know what to make of anything. And honestly, I am still hopeful we will see Annie and Tommaso, give that exclusive interview, hopefully not with Hoda Kotb, even not with any local news station.
If A&T gives an interview, I'm taking the day off. I'm preparing.
I actually just want them to talk to Brian Enton because I have faith in that man to speak for us and ask the questions that have been burning in our minds as it has in his. I'm pretty sure that none of us will ever forget the time when Thomas Cioni was the prime suspect in this whole thing, as according to Ashley Banfield, which I still do believe her sources were being honest. And even then, we didn't get an angry reply from him. We didn't get a statement from Annie, who I feel should have been a livid wife that her husband has been accused of such a thing, okay? No one came out of the woodworks from any areas of their life to share a story about the son-in-law, how he couldn't do it. Give us a story about how kind he is, how good a man he is. And in contrast, even how bad a man he is. He is a 6th grade teacher, and not one student or faculty member has a word to share with the local news. How far-reaching is this, I'm just assuming, PR machine that is keeping everybody in this orbit just quiet. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Nancy Guthrie case, in my lawn chair detective opinion, we're just not allowed to know much because of that massive PR machine at work from the very beginning, which I assume is just a string of high-priced lawyers that just has restricted everything and everyone, okay? Because their motto is possibly less is more in terms of keeping the family looking clean as possible, I should say.
That's a good point.
I mean, in contrast to that, look how many people believe that Annie and Tommaso has something to do with it. So, I mean, a statement from the pair can't possibly be that detrimental to how they look. Just touch on the talking points that you don't want them to talk about.
Again, another catch-22, because I would love for them to come out with a statement. But honestly, as far as PR, and let's think about this, Savannah may have a PR team through NBC working with her as well. Does anyone really think if A&T came out with a statement proclaiming his innocence and his personality and that there's just no way this could, does anyone really think that people are going to believe that? Or is that going to add more fuel to the fire? Because regardless of what they say, it could actually do more harm. And it could be they've got an actual like New York City PR team advising them just to say nothing and wait for this whole thing to blow over, because it could be worse if they did. I'm giving them grace tonight. Let's continue.
Give the public a little humanity. Tell us what happened those days as you remember it. And I'm pretty sure more than just a few people are going to jump off the Annie and Tommaso did it bandwagon. After saying all that, I know this is going to sound weird to say, but did you guys ever realize that not much is mentioned about families' devices, okay?
Yeah.
Which should be just as important as their car, right? That 2010 Honda CR-V being impounded as evidence for a whopping 40 days, give or take, right? Since everything I could find is prefaced with, around, right? Roughly, approximately. Their vehicle was impounded for well over a month, which is a crazy amount of time in contrast to the standard processing of a vehicle.
It looks like someone's using ChatGPT. I'm telling you, this looks like ChatGPT. Woo!
Max, which actually makes the 4 to 8 weeks that Pima County was holding onto their vehicle for even more puzzling. Now, if you include Sheriff Nanos taking it upon himself to clear the family, but not handing back the family's car in a standard amount of time, issuing the most bumbling retraction about the family saying, well, they are not suspects at this time. How else do you want the public to respond to this kind of nonsense without any explanation? Of course, we're going to use our imagination. So in terms of the family's devices, we could assume that the same process, right, of cell tower triangulation and GPS tracking, are applied to understand the movements and how it fits, right? Alibis. Going back to February 1st, right? It's a Sunday morning. Family gets a phone call from Nancy's church friends, which, from my knowledge, has always been at a stable 11 a.m. However, why?
And really quick, I use ChatGPT. I was saying woohoo, like awesome. I'm glad to know that other people are using it too. I was not dissing it at all. I use it very openly. I'm very transparent. I am happy that someone else is using it because I feel like I cheat a little bit. I just don't have time to do the research, and it makes it so much easier. So I love it.
Is it been a puzzle when it comes to when family gets to Nancy's house?
The family went to the house. I'm thinking they spent some time looking for her themselves before they called us. So I'm guessing.
Yes, and this is what he first said, is they spent time looking for her. Remember, in those first few days, there was the whole thing that they spent an hour or two or whatever, and there was a delay. So what happened to that?
Maybe they got there around 11. So they
got there at 11,
did some searching and realized we need some help, and they called 911. And at 11:56 a.m., The family checks on Nancy.
Why'd the timeline change? Again, Nanos, shoot from the hip. Nanos, he doesn't have a filter. They had to shut him up. So that first day he comes out, he was giving us all kinds of info. I still think they were there longer. And how do we know the doors? They didn't open the doors. And again, we don't know. There could be staging going on.
I'm sure Pima County knows the time exactly when family arrived, simply just by following their devices. Now, the time that cannot be disputed is when family called the police, which is at 12:03, right? Family calls the police and the police arrives about 12 minutes later at 12:15. Now, keep that in mind because 12:15 is important. So we're going to do something that might just prove very intriguing to a lot of us, okay? We're going to see from what Savannah outlined in her interview with Hoda Kotb, a long stretch of unexplained time. So the first thing we have to do is to understand the time difference between Arizona and New York.
And again, I just dropped the link into my May 9th episode where I literally phrase by phrase go through and analyze as an empath and reading her body language, her eyes, her emotional response. I analyzed the entire 15-minute interview.
York. Okay, so it is wintertime that Sunday morning in Pima County. We all know that a group of church friends were gathering that morning to watch a live stream of Good Shepherd Church, which is a New York-based church service, which the one and only Savannah Guthrie and her children attend every single week. We can use our lawn chair detective skills to deduce that the only reason these folks in Pima County were gathering to watch this sermon from Manhattan was because the mother of Savannah Guthrie was part of that gathering. Now, it being winter is important because that means New York at this time is a full 3 hours ahead of Arizona's Mountain Standard Time, which rightfully so doesn't practice the tomfoolery of daylight savings time. So Savannah Guthrie attends in person the Good Shepherd Church, and that starts at 9:30 a.m. every Sunday. That service is then video recorded, and once it wraps up, it is streamed over the internet for everyone else in the country at 11:15 a.m. Eastern. Okay, the time frame of this service is important. So if it begins at 9:30,
but in February it would have been 3 hours. I believe. And somebody checked that. Remember, this was in February. This is before spring forward, fall behind. Yeah, so 3 hours difference. And it is confusing. It's hard for me to do time conversion as well. But if somebody wants to check, maybe ask Gemini or ChatGPT and find out exactly what time frame. If it was 9:30 Eastern, what time? Because I believe it would have been Crime After Dark is saying it's 2 hours in February, and DJ is saying 2. Okay, that's good to know because it makes a big difference. All right, here we go.
Streams for everyone at 11:15. We can safely assume that the entire service is about 60 to 90 minutes. So, moving to Pima County. Every week when Nancy and her church friends would start watching the stream, if we subtract those three.
Crime After Dark, is this, I think you mentioned that he had a boo-boo in his time frame. Is this the boo-boo you were talking about? I think this might be. But you know what? I don't know. Let's go with it and see, because you guys have watched this. And it's very confusing to me as well. I'm like, whoa.
3 hours from when it streams in New York, then it would be 8:15 in Arizona. So whoever was holding the gathering, that person could reasonably expect people to start showing up at around 8 a.m. So let's go ahead and place ourselves in Nancy's church friend's shoes. 8 a.m. rolls around and Nancy is not yet there. Okay, no cause for concern. I will say, no matter how diligent a person is in terms of time, everyone is late now and again. So that stream starts at 8:15 a.m. And let's just say more than a few friends are disappointed that Nancy is going to miss the beginning of the service. And I think we can assume that if the ladies already haven't, they would then give Nancy a call and they would get no answer, right? Maybe she's rushing over at the moment and can't pick up. Now, if we are to consider that this service is more likely than not an hour and some change, right? By 9 a.m.
Really quick, for those that checked, it's 2 hours. Keep in mind, Arizona does not change their time. So when everybody else daylight saves and spring forward fall behind, they don't. So keep that in mind. Sometimes they are 2 hours from Eastern. Sometimes they are 3 hours. Sometimes they're on Pacific Standard. So we need to figure out and double check the Arizona, whether they were on Pacific Standard or Mountain or whatever the heck it is.
The stream is more than halfway done. And I can only imagine that Nancy's closest friends would call her again, okay, to no avail. Now, if we know that our friend, who is 84 years old, has health conditions, she has a pacemaker, this would be a cause for alarm already, don't you think? Now, here's the problem with that line of thinking. Something that I guess I never thought to question. But I'm not sure we were ever given an actual time when Nancy's church friends called Annie.
Yeah.
Right? I think Sheriff Nanos touched on that subject in those early press conferences, but he spoke in a more open.
So Jenny, are you saying that it's a premiere, not a live, and it's a replay? So couldn't it be, honestly, that the streaming would start anytime all the ladies are there at the house and they hit play? I mean, we're assuming that they have to be seated to watch it live, but if it's a replay, like you're saying, they could have sat down at 9 a.m. anytime after 9:15, after it actually ran. It could have been 10 a.m. So we don't know what time they were going to start. So there's even more mystery and intrigue behind the church ladies. Mystery and intrigue.
Ended way without any specific timestamps.
9:45 in the evening, her children left her off. At some time earlier that morning, they got a call from somebody at the church who said, "Hey, your mom's not here."
I think we have the first truly troubling gap in the timeline, unless you guys can prove me wrong. Tell me something that I missed. Tell me that he did give a time. Show me where it is that he says they called Annie at 11 a.m. Because here's the problem, right? If the church stream is over by 9:30 a.m., and if Nancy's friends are wondering where she could be, then wouldn't it be a perfect time to call Annie? Just to ask her if Nancy was with her. Did she forget to come to this gathering? Wouldn't that be the time that, family gets that call? But it's only 9:30 a.m. Even if we move that back with some delay to 10 a.m., that is still a massive gap to the confirmed 12:03 when the police are finally called. So please, I want to be wrong about this. I encourage everyone to try to find the hole in the logic I just presented here. I feel I could be missing something, or did family really wait 2 hours before calling the police? Or did Nancy's church friends wait a full hour and a half? If that's the case, then any of us could see what kind of issue we might have with a large 2-hour gap of not being able to reach your mom, who is only 4 miles away. Okay, we all have our biases, right? In a case that has been going on for months now, 5 months, but you have to admit, even if you throw those biases out the window, 2 hours of not being able to contact your elderly mother should feel like a heart-wrenching, insurmountable amount of time. We can't even get there fast enough if it was 10 seconds. Even if it was 1 hour, okay? That still sounds pretty puzzling.
So if we're saying that they were supposed to meet at 11, Chris McDonough drove it, and it's about 15-20 minutes, even though they're only 4 miles apart because of the winding. So it would have, if she got contacted, let's say they're supposed to be there at 11, and Nancy doesn't show up for 10 minutes. They're like, what's going on? And they're calling her to see if she's going to show up so they can get started. They probably are calling her pretty much around, if it was me, I probably would start texting around 11, say, hey, are you on your way? 11:05, I'm probably going to start calling. If there's no answer, again and again, by 11:10, 11:15, I'm calling Annie. But I mean, if that timeline is what we're working with, then Annie getting to the house at 11:56, we're going to assume that ICAC and the car brain told them and confirmed 11:56 arrival. I mean, if you have to get dressed, if you're, whatever, they might have had to stop and get gas. I mean, it seems like 20 minutes or so, they could have been there a little bit earlier, but we don't know. But I can see already, if his time is off with this whole thing, just looking at his theory, and we still have a few minutes left of this, his theory may be, he's probably going to get a lot of comments from this, unfortunately. And I mean, I love what he does, but if his timing is wrong, he's saying that there were a few hours between when Nancy was supposed to be there with the time change and the family getting to the house. So you're right. Crime After Dark. There's a the whole, and the time frame is actually, I think, his mathing. But I love him, and we're going to go with it because he's bringing up good points. We're going to keep going.
Now let's go ahead and look at the accounts from Savannah directly from that Hodakabi interview. Okay, so she says that before Annie called her, she was having a beautiful, fun night together at Carson Daly's home. And I feel we can safely imagine Savannah and her kids, hanging out with Carson Daly's family and his kids. They most likely had dinner together, and the whole night, I'll say it lasts about 2 hours. Just a relaxing evening with good company, right? How does 2 hours sound to you guys, right? It seems reasonable for a fun night, okay? The key description that Savannah gives us is night. So if we know that sunset in New York is 5:13 p.m. on that day, it's more than within reason to say that Savannah was home at 7:30 p.m. Now, honestly, to me, that sounds conservative. But if we could all agree on that, that means that it's 4:30 in Pima County, whichin lies the next puzzling time gap. Why did it take Annie more than 4 hours from the time the police arrive at her house, which is said to be at about 12:15, okay? 4 hours to inform her sister about their mom being missing. I feel there is no way that Annie and Tommaso, at this point in the case, okay, they're at Nancy's house with police everywhere, that A&T don't already know that the Nest camera is missing and that there is blood on the porch, right? But Annie only tells Savannah that the back doors were propped open, leading Savannah to believe that it is a possibility that a medical emergency happened overnight and the paramedics had to prop open their mother's door so that they can gurney her out, going as far as to allow Savannah to call the hospitals herself with the knowledge that the scene at their mother's house was a cause.
So this is where my confusion lies as well about that whole thing, that supposedly Savannah says that Annie had already called the hospitals, but Annie is trying to tell law enforcement that it's kidnapped for ransom and it wasn't a walk-off. But then even Savannah says she then called the hospitals. I don't know. I feel like, and maybe we'll watch just the beginning of that interview again. I feel like Savannah's a very honest person, but she does tell in the first 4 to 5 minutes of her interview with Hoda, there's a portion of that where she can't tell what happened 100% at that house. She can't repeat. She's been asked, in my opinion, she's been asked not to tell what happened on that first day in the house. They're keeping that like locked up. But she starts making stuff up. And the thing that Savannah made up, in my opinion, is when she says she called the hospital. She's a very articulate, very clear person with her words. And when she looks up to the left talking to Hoda and she starts fumbling around with her words and just saying things that are weird, it's because she's making up stuff. Anyway, watch my video and you'll see what I'm talking about.
For grave concerns, to take the words of Nanos, okay? We also know that from police scanners uncovered by Juanita Arame that the police had already called the hospitals. Now, if Savannah was given that bit of information that the police had already called.
And Juanita is another YouTuber, like with Alex. And so his time frame, he's saying that she had 4 hours with which to get to her mom's house. But I don't know that I agree. If everyone is confirming that you checked that there was an article from the church ladies or somebody, and they're stating that Nancy was due to be at the church ladies' house at 11 a.m., then I feel like the time frame actually tightens up.
Would she still have called? Now, of course, however suspicious as this looks, I actually do think I have an idea why Annie behaved this way, why it might be so. So,
and I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep stopping, but I don't want to forget this. So I watch Duty Ron and Ed Wallace, and they're retired New York cops, and their point early on is, having to call the hospitals was. He thought that was kind of bunk and just words to be said, because all it would take law enforcement is to call into dispatch and find out if EMS had been dispatched to the home at any point in the night. If there was a call in, they would have a record of any 911 call. They would have any EMS. Her cars are there. I guess the only other thing that I would think about, having to check the hospitals perhaps is if Nancy had gotten in touch with a friend and a friend had driven her there. But, again, her phone was at the house. So, again, I don't know.
Let's look at this from a loving family member's perspective first. If we take the roughly 4 hours it took Annie from discovering her mother missing in the morning to calling her sister way in the afternoon, if we're looking...
Which I do agree that regardless, it seems to me that Annie did take a long time to notify Savannah. And we don't have an exact time, but it does feel like afternoon. And Savannah probably had to wait for her husband, who was on a tennis weekend, to come home and take care of the kids. Annie waited, it felt like she waited hours. If there's any hours in holes, honestly, I feel like it's when Annie gets there, law enforcement gets there, they're looking for mom, they're talking, they're going back and forth. She waited a long time to call Savannah, in my opinion.
Looking at it through the lens of a genuinely bewildered loved one, then I would say that Annie was just trying to protect Savannah, right? To protect her little sister from the truth for as long as she could, okay?
Maybe.
The likely scenario that their mother was physically removed from her home and was bleeding was something she could not yet bear to tell.
And yeah, we do want to protect our little sister, but facts is facts. And I know I've had Crunchy Sissy on here, and she even said, and I'm her little sister. There's no way I'm calling Crunchy Sissy. I'm calling Crunchy Sissy before I call 911. Where the hell is mom? Have you talked to mom? What's going on? I'm calling Crunchy Sissy. I'm not waiting hours. I'm just not. I think that if there's a hole, it's that.
Oh, Savannah or Cameron, just yet, right? And if we look at it from that angle.
That's a great point. EMS would have taken her phone. They would have taken all her stuff, her hearing aids. They would have taken they probably would have taken her meds with them, because, when you go to the hospital, if she's going to have to stay there for any length of time, which usually they're going to admit an 84-year-old, if there's an emergency, they need to have her medication. So they probably would have known to grab all that stuff.
Hey, I personally can see why Annie would do what she did, because she wanted to exhaust all the possibilities, right? At least have some answers maybe even find their mother before she had to break the news, to her siblings. I feel that makes perfect sense. Now, in contrast, if we were to look at it through the lens of a person that, say, has knowledge of the abduction, or maybe just a well-founded suspicion of who possibly could have did the crime, then also.
So Lazy Days, per TIR, 2:12 p.m. Tucson time. Is that what time? Is that, you're saying that that's what time Savannah was notified by Annie? Is it 2:12? Because that would still be, that actually tightens up that time frame too, because I could see easily maybe spending an hour looking and dealing with the police and not being able to. But I can't imagine, again, that the police aren't going to have her call her sister and say, can you get your siblings on the phone and see if they know anything? I think that's, again, that's something done in the first 15 minutes. But people are different, but that's just me. And I thought it was in the evening as well, because I didn't think that she got to Tucson until after midnight. And I don't know if Cameron flew in, because that's the thing. He got there before Savannah, but I don't know if it's because he was able to get on a plane and get in pretty quickly. He, works for American. He could have gone to the airport and literally jumped on any flight he wanted to in the jump seat. He wouldn't have to buy a ticket or anything.
That behavior also aligns with the disappearance of Nancy. And, well, I want to say a quick thanks to Dottie again for sending me this food for thought, even though it is a very eerie thought to think that there was a possibility that Nancy's nightmare began the moment she walked into her house that previous evening. My name is Monks. Now go protect the ones that you love. And don't forget to love the ones that protect you.
I have a kitty that looks kind of like that. I have a lot of kitties. I have one that she's a Persian, and she looks like a Muppet. She looks like if Oscar the Grouch had a kitty version, so I call her Muppet. Her name is Baja, which is Polish for Barb. She looks like a Barb. And Zosha, the crime-fighting kitty, I think she might be outside. I kind of live in the country, so some of the kitties go outside. Okay, so I would say, let's look at some of the, see, here we go. I know it. And the thing is it just makes me so, the very first comment is, Monks, you are wrong. In January, NYC would be 2 hours ahead of time in Pima County. Today, July 12th, NYC is at EDT, and it's 3 hours ahead. All right, let me zoom in on this because he's still doing good work. Let's look at the replies. Monks, yes. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see it. Okay, so again, here I'm just in the comments. And of course, Monks, you are wrong. And this is from Aquarian Dreamer 1527. Monks, you are wrong. In January, NYC would be 2 hours ahead of the time in Pima County, AZ. Today, July 12th, NYC is in EDT and is 3 hours ahead of AZ. And Monks said, you are right. I made the mistake of Googling winter. I caught the error after I posted. Fortunately, that gaffe doesn't change how gap filled the timeline how gap filled that timeline is. Thanks for making sure the info is correct. I appreciate that. And somebody, Craft Eccentricity, said, according to Google on February 1st, most of Arizona exactly 3 hours behind New York City. No, it's 2 hours in Tucson. Monk says, I do believe that's how I came about that info. And somebody's saying November 1st, it will fall back, and I hope Nancy's perpetrators will be prosecuted. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know that there was 4 hours. I don't know that there was 4 hours. So even if they contacted Nancy at 11, I'm sorry, they contacted Annie. Annie's there at 11:56. But he's assuming that they're watching it live, and somebody here, and it could be that see, this is what I'm not sure. And I don't want to say anything because I originally thought that they were watching the live service because Savannah's there at the same time. And if there's 2 or 3 hours difference, I had originally thought that it could be anytime Nancy could have been at the church ladies, anytime from 8:30 on as well. So I've gone down this road as well. And I thought that there was lots of time before Annie got there. But if you guys are saying that there was an article that church ladies expected Nancy at 11 local time, then that actually tightened, and they were watching a replay, which of course they can, with streaming, we were assuming, I was assuming that they were going to be watching it live, but they don't have to. And it could have been a replay. You can see the search for that article and it will come up. Okay, the search for that article and it will come up. Church lady talks about Nancy Guthrie time. And if you guys remember, Brian Enton, while I'm looking this up, there was a church nearby, and I remember Brian Enton going to the church, and people originally in the early days before we figured everything, well, we haven't figured anything out, but I remember that Brian Enton had gone to one of the churches, and they said that Nancy hadn't been there in months. Let's see. Just search NY Times. All right. NY Times, Nancy Guthrie Church Friends. And thank you. Thank you. The New York Times reported that Nancy Guthrie's church friends originally expected her to arrive at their house on the morning of February 1st, 2026 to watch a church service. When she failed to show up and could not be reached, the friends contacted her family, which ultimately led to this discovery of her abduction. Here are the key details regarding her church friends and the investigation. The routine. Nancy Guthrie was 84. She regularly met with her church friends on Sundays. Investigators determined she was taken from her home near Tucson. Church friends said she didn't. Let me go into the article. Let's see if this is the one. Oh, they're going to make me do this. I don't have a subscription. I'm trying to look for the time here. I'm sorry, you guys. Let me go to Reddit and see if does anyone have a definitive proof? Nancy attended the Good Shepherd online church service held in New York weekly from 11 a.m. Eastern to 12 p.m. That would be 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. in Arizona time. Purportedly, church friend called family at 11 a.m. AZ time. Family arrived 11:56. If the service ended around 10 a.m. Arizona time, that leaves roughly a 2-hour window before the reported missing person concern escalated. We don't know. So, Crime After Dark, is this what you were looking at? Oh, here's Osha. Here's Osha, the crime-fighting kitty. Get down, Zoshi. 11 a.m. So, Crime After Dark, is this the article you were talking about? Family showed up at 11 and called law enforcement 11:56. That is from 2. That's wrong. We know that. Well, we only know what we know, but it could all be wrong. In the New York Times article from February 13th, the church friend says she didn't show up for the church service, which is at 11 a.m. Let me see if I can get a screenshot. Okay, so let's read this. Before they said goodbye in the afternoon of Jan 30, Miss Guthrie checked with one of the players. They were playing mahjong the night before, or on the 30th, which is Friday. Miss Guthrie checked with one of the players, Anne Burnson, making sure that they were still on to watch church at a friend's house on Sunday. The ritual was to gather in the friend's den and watch a recording of the Manhattan service that Miss Guthrie's youngest child, the NBC host Savannah Guthrie, had attended earlier that morning. Okay, they even had wafers and grape juice on hand for communion, but Nancy Guthrie, awesome, but Nancy Guthrie, always punctual, did not arrive at 11 a.m. on February 1st. Her friends texted, then called. They contacted Miss Guthrie's older daughter, Annie, who rushed to Miss Guthrie's home. It was empty. So to me, that even tightens up that timeline even more. Now, nearly 2 weeks after Miss Guthrie's disappearance, which the authorities have said they're investigating as an abduction, her friends and family say they are refusing to give up hope of finding her alive. Okay. Yes, let me put the link here. This is actually from a Reddit post. Here's the link to this image. And here's the Reddit thread. And it looks like maybe this second one might be easier to find, because I just scrolled down and here's a link to the article, and then somebody actually did a screenshot, which is helpful because not everybody has a subscription. So let's see. Nancy fails to show for 11 a.m. Her friends start calling her soon after. After several tries, they call Annie to see if she knows where Nancy is. Annie doesn't know and can't get a hold of Nancy either, so she drives out to Nancy's and arrives at 11:56. She's disturbed enough by what she sees that she calls 911 at 12:03 p.m. Officers arrive. I don't think there's anything suspicious or notable about that timeline. And I have to agree. If that's the timeline, if this is the timeline, that makes sense, because it's about 20 minutes drive with all the, 25 mile per hour, speed bumps. There's speed bumps. You can't speed. And this tightens everything up, in my opinion. So because Nancy, I'm not going to read that because we can only really go off of, and to me, the most accurate is going to be an interview that a church friend gives to a newspaper. The rest of this is all speculation. But I would have to say that I think Monks did an amazing job, and good on him for doing this. And yes, I do think he's off a little bit, though. It looks like there was really, honestly, if she's supposed to be there at 11, the church friends look like they reacted pretty quickly. Crime After Dark. Yes, he drove it. Yes, he drove it. You saw that. I'm sure he did. Thank you so much, Crime. This really helped clear a lot of things up. And again, this is why we are a community, because we have to, learn from each other, because you guys are going to hear something, pick something up, see something, and we want to be as accurate as possible. We don't want to, you want to do the atonement one? Sure. Have we watched that one together? Let's see. I don't know why. Oh, I zoomed in a lot. View, zoom out. Zoom out. Do you guys want to watch the atonement video? Sometimes we do watch parties. And please make sure to go in and I'm going to give this video
now for this particular video, I just want to share one message.
And let's make sure that even though if you haven't watched this video, please make sure to go in and give him a view, so that I don't want to steal his views. Let me go into videos. Do you guys want to watch? Atonement. I don't think we've watched Atonement before. Oh, this is from 5 days ago. Do you guys want to watch it? Let me know if you want to watch it. I've got a thumbs up from
Has never left our hand, okay? And we're speed dialing mom over and over again, surprised or basically appalled.
Okay, so let's watch it, you guys. And if you guys have to jump off, I get it. I think Interview Room has their show on now, so I don't want to. If you have to jump over to Interview Room, I get it. Okay, let's watch this. Oh, Connected. Let's watch this one, and then tomorrow we'll watch Connected. Okay.
Appalled at how cheap that first tier is, and that is for early access videos.
I'm going to forward ahead
this again for a very long time. Now, getting into what we're going to talk about today, it's going to sound a bit like a detour from the title, but I promise you that it all leads to a point.
And I haven't watched
me
all
personally,
of this.
I don't mind if facts about a case are reiterated to preface or simply help me better understand that point. There's always been an interesting plot hole in the Nancy Guthrie case, okay? Like amongst countless other plot holes, of course, but the one that I found pretty troublesome actually manifested not too long ago while watching the Interview Room, and it's been on my mind ever since. So Chris McDonough and his even more beautiful wife, Karen, through sources and via Nanos's early reporting, provided the problematic timeline of when the family was over at Nancy's house as early as 11 a.m. Now, in context to the situation, that actually makes a lot of sense because Nancy's church friends, right, began to become concerned about her absence and called Annie at around 11 a.m. Annie and Tommaso rushing over to Nancy's house, it actually bodes well in terms of behavior, right? Because if we love our mother and we're told that she missed an activity that she, pun intended, religiously attends every week at the same time with the same people, I would think our panic level is at, say, a level 2 at this time. With each ring that is not answered, okay, panic is going to rise to a level 4 and probably reaches 5 when it goes to voicemail. We're immediately telling our spouse the situation while grabbing our keys, right?
Yeah.
We're on the move. We're heading out the door already because our panic has now risen to 6, and then it's a 7 as we're erratically racing to our mom's house. Can't get to our mom's house fast enough. Now, the phone, it has never left our hand, okay? And we're speed dialing mom over and over again in this 10-minute drive to get over.
Well, and I will go over to TIR, but he's also covering the Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk thing. And honestly, I just don't want to really get involved with that. You know, people get really, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And so I'm avoiding a lot of that.
There, our heart is basically pounding out of our chest, right? Panic level is at a solid 8. This also depends on where we choose to enter the house, right? Now, of course, we're from the future, so we already know what awaits us. So our hearts will be wrenching within the next couple of minutes, and I'm going to say it that way because allow me to put into perspective that if Nancy could enter her house through her own garage within 2 minutes, I would say that her able-bodied daughter and even more nimble son-in-law could rush into her house in a lot less time. So I think it's very safe to say that within the next couple of minutes, family would be in an all-out panic. At least we would, don't you think? In short order, I would think they would have checked her room to find that she's not asleep in there, and finally find all the aforementioned warning signs that this is 100% not just a simple walk away. So let's just say that by 11:30 a.m., which I think is extremely generous, is when the family should have fully realized that the back doors are propped wide open, that Nancy's phone, her wallet, her medication are still there, a missing doorbell camera, and of course, the blood on the porch. If the realization took until 11:30, then still what prevents them from calling the police for the next 33 minutes. And this is something that I would love to hear what you guys can come up with. And I'm going to tell you right now, if it was me, okay, finding my mom missing after not being able to contact her is more than enough for me to have already called the police and pretty much worry about all the other details later. But let's go ahead and entertain what we could possibly do in that 33 minutes. I mean, it did take me a while to actually come up with something, and I actually think that it's a good one. And it comes from Savannah's interview with Hoda Kotb, which is calling all the local hospitals. And I could actually see how that burns up 33 minutes if they had to call multiple hospitals, right? 2 or more ERs whose phone lines could possibly be busy. Now, I will add, to be fair, that just because we can't understand how family is not able to read the clear signs of foul play, that shouldn't be held against them, because we have to remember that panic at this point should be at a level 10 and everyone reacts differently. But between you and me, I'll have to say that 1 hour, even 33 minutes is an eyebrow raising amount of time given this situation. And I will speak for all of us invested in this.
And I know we're going back and forth. We are all going back and forth on the time. I actually think I want to ask 857 Tucson or someone who lives there. I think I have his email. I'll email him and ask him how many hours difference it was, because I do think we need to have that solid. We need to have the time difference accurate. We really, really do.
This case, wouldn't it be nice,
and why are
if
they
not
hiding
very
their faces?
Fruitful, to have met Annie and
I mean,
Tomas?
honestly, that why are they hiding their faces? This is what gives them a bad look, because that's not normal. If your mother is, you know what I'd be doing? I'd have freaking posters all over the windows everywhere I drove. I wouldn't be hiding my face. It looks like he's driving out of the driveway or whatever. Why are they hiding their faces? I don't understand this.
So, since day one, because there are some answers they could give us that should definitely not hinder the case. Hell, this video right here would not exist if...
All right, let me go on here. I'm going to ask, what time difference is AZ from New York on February 1st, 2026? On February 2026, most of Arizona is 2 hours behind New York. So that's the answer. It's 2 hours. I know. And yes, but I see a lot of chat going on about it. So I'm glad to see it's 2 hours. So if she was supposed to be there, whatever, it's 2 hours. 2 hours.
They told us themselves when they actually got to Nancy's house. How did they get into the house, right?
2 hours.
What did they see that led them to believe that something was seriously wrong? Why did you take so long from when Nancy's church buddies told you about Nancy being missing to the time that you actually called?
So is there a difference between Tucson? Because I lived in Arizona. Is Tucson different? Because Arizona is Arizona. What time's difference is Tucson, AZ from NYC, New York? 2 hours. The whole state doesn't change. So Tucson is 2 hours. There we go. I love it, though. I love it.
The police. That last question actually does not change whether they got to Nancy's house at 11 a.m. or 11:56 a.m., which is the time that I initially believed before I watched the interview room, because the facts remain.
And if I haven't mentioned, if you are new here, please subscribe and hit the like button, okay? And hit the bell, because I'm trying to go live as often as if I have good content, I'll go live. If I don't have content, you probably won't see me, but I try to go about 4 times a week.
That Nancy's church friends notified Annie at roughly 11 a.m. And it doesn't change the fact that the police were notified at noon. There is still roughly a 1-hour gap. The funny thing is, these are seemingly mundane things that we can assume the Pima County Sheriff's Department has logged somewhere in their files. How interesting would that be once, I guess, they finally decide to illuminate us with this information? I've said this before, and it's worth saying again. If family had absolutely nothing to do with it, then why is their story such a mystery? Okay, why don't we know what the Uber driver said? All right, no matter how boring. We've been told that the family gathered the night previous, right? They had dinner and they had game night. Who exactly attended this family get together? Hey, how about the route that Tommaso took Nancy home in? Okay, why don't we know that route? Because imagine all the public and private cameras that might have caught them driving past, and all those people that could have checked their archives to track that phantom vehicle. I mean, you cannot tell us that knocking on every door along that route is more efficient than just releasing Tommaso's route and having someone say, hey, I live along that route, and that person calling in with useful footage. Now, let me add that it's no secret at this.
Well, and along those lines, I think originally law enforcement only asked for like a 2-mile radius, but the house that had the cars going in front at that time was like 2.5 miles. So they didn't do enough of a radius. They didn't, in my opinion, they did not ask the public for the right information, and they haven't done a good job reaching out to the public. And don't get me started on the billboards that were useless, that they paid all that money for, that nobody in any city is going to even look at that and see this old lady that just says missing. They should have had the porch guy on the billboards. Have you seen this guy? How about we find him? If we find him, we find her. It was just, it's like, how hard can you guys work at not trying to solve this crime? Okay, how hard can Pima County just not solve the crime? They did good at that.
Point in the case that Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI are not on the same page, possibly not even reading the same book. Guys, the things that Pima County chooses to release couldn't even help crack an egg, let alone an abduction case. For example, Pima County released that Nest doorbell camera detects a person at 2:12 a.m. And immediately the sheriff adds nonsense by saying it could be an animal. Why? Whereas the FBI releases a 40-second clip of that person detected, not a javelina with a crotch holster. The FBI revealed an entire masked gunman for the entire world to see, which makes me believe that the FBI at least does hope the public can help them solve the mystery.
Agreed, Jet Set.
And in contrast, in my opinion, I don't think the sheriff wants anyone else, especially the FBI or lawn chair detectives like ourselves, to take this one away from him. Okay, it almost feels like he sees it as some type of affront to his position, because let's never forget, he needs votes. Okay, come re-election time, and what a feather this would be in his cap to solve, if not the biggest cases in Pima County history. And I really do hope that the good people of Pima County will think to ask, okay, the sheriff, if he's running in the next election.
I agree. Those cars, they should have been looking at those cars, and hopefully they are. And you know what? It was citizens that found those cars, not the police. Yeah, the cars need to be looked at big time.
What really is the excuse for keeping the FBI, you know, those guys with the high-tech toys and the endless resources? What's the excuse of keeping that department out for the first 4 critical days of the investigation? Now, that piece of tidbit that I just shared with you, that started out as a leaked rumor. We didn't know if that was true or not. And it turned out to be solid fact.
In the Nancy Guthrie case, I got frustrated because I knew from my sources they were trying to keep you guys out.
They did.
Yep.
They did keep you out.
And look, here's how
time matters in an investigation.
The first 48 hours of anyone's disappearance are the most critical.
Good morning, Sheriff Nanos. Thank you so much for your time. I only have a couple of questions for you. And the first one is simple. How can you think early on that Nancy is an elderly walk away and also say that you don't believe that she walked out of the house on her own accord? Please enlighten us. The scene gave us grave concerns, and we didn't find any shoe prints. That tells us great detectives that she did not walk out on her own, but she's also not in the house. So me and my detectives, which I trust with my very own wife, we put our heads together and we realized she's outside. Here we go again.
Word salad. Look at Nanos. What a joke. He is a puke.
Okay, Sheriff. Okay, she's outside. Then why did you call off search and rescue so early on? And then ask the public that if they see her to call you, right? You can see why that makes no sense. Yes, look, young man. I'm an optometrist by nature.
Oh my
and,
God.
you know, I just want to bring Nancy home. I just want to look at the whiskey glass, you know, half drunk.
Oh,
Sheriff,
my Lord.
I'm not going through this again. So,
This
you know,
is
I only have
hysterical.
one more question for you before I'm arrested for not being on the easement. Why did you prevent the
So you know what, hi Gladys, I'm so happy to see you. It says 3 hours, but when I just did it and it says 2. So I don't know. And everyone else is saying 2, and then there's a couple people saying it's 3. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can get 857 Tucson. I'm going to email him and say, "Can you help, please? What freaking time was it on February 1st? Because I just did it and it said 2 hours, and I know that you just did it and it said 3. We've had I don't know. I don't know, and we need to figure that out. So I'm going to see if he'll answer. He's busy. I don't know if he checks his emails, but I'm going to ask him.
FBI from being part of the investigation for 4 whole days? Monks. That is all a great misunderstanding. The FBI loves me as I adore
my God. This is so funny.
FBI. Since day one, I have been spoon feeding them all the information that I want to give them. I mean, you must have seen it. I gave them that at 2:12, the Nest camera detected a person. It might have been a coyote. I don't know. But we definitely called out the homicide unit just in case it was an elderly walk away. So what does this tell us? I feel it shows a clear conflict of interest because, as everyone knows, the first 48 hours when a person goes missing is very crucial, and the odds of getting that person back just decreases.
It's the first 48, but really that first 12 is where they needed to have had their crap together. The first 12.
Dramatically with each passing moment. Now, let me say this next bit carefully. If this is not an inside job, if all of the Guthrie family and the people that orbit them have no clue, no inclination of who the porch guy could even be, then I cannot see any other emotion except being irate at the handling of Nancy's disappearance. Now, let's go ahead and get to these ransom notes and how it all ties into this, okay? So we've heard the term boots on the ground. How come we have not seen Adidas on the ground? Or maybe even Skechers on the ground, right? Desperately looking for Nancy. Those early days, and that's a sentiment I'm just reiterating because I've heard that countless times. Why haven't the Guthries themselves been on the search like the good folks out there? Now, for Savannah, yes, she is high profile, but I do believe she is the only high profile person that would possibly be in danger because at the time, right, who was anybody else? Now, there could be a plausible reason why that is, however, and that is that they did believe that ransom note number 1 received the very next day after her kidnapping on February 2nd was real, okay? The one that was addressed, hello, Savannah, right? Clearly indicating that they have Nancy demanding a ransom and giving information about the crime scene that only the perp would know, okay? The first 2 notes that Savannah addressed in her media-trained way as she was talking with Hoda Kotb as being the ones that she tends to believe are real. I now personally believe that she knows it's real, that the FBI has convinced her that it's real, that Nanos believes it's real as well, and why he called off search and rescue so early on, even rejecting the help of the Cajun Navy because they all believed that the notes are real. Doesn't that answer those?
Yeah, and here's my problem. Again, it doesn't matter if the notes are real. We think the first 2 notes are real. She was kidnapped. She's probably dead. Everybody knew after the first 4 or 5 days, she's probably dead. She's not coming back. There's no communication with the kidnappers. They needed to find her body in February when it's still cool in the evenings and all of the wolves have not ripped her body apart. Okay? Because it's much easier to find when you've got vultures and birds flying overhead. They did not look for her, and they should have looked for her. There's no reason why they couldn't have had a search ongoing at the same time, concurrent with the investigation. How about finding her body? There you go. Just there you go.
Questions pretty efficiently. The only problem with the notes, of course, no proof of life. So they released plea video number 1 on February 4th. And it seemed like the primary objective of this video is to tug on the kidnappers' heartstrings and ask for proof of life. And it seemed to have worked because on February 6th, they get a response from a fully tugged heart, it appears. The second note was revealed by news reporter Brianna Whitney.
The way that this note was written, it's written as we, like we didn't know this, as if it was some sort of team or whoever was involved in this. It said, we did not fully grasp the seriousness of her physical condition. It went on to say that they never intended to hurt her during all of this. They continued and said she perished shortly after she was taken. They believe that it was heart related. And then what the reports were confirming earlier today, that she was buried with nature. And maybe the most important part of the second ransom note, it said, nothing you could have done could have changed the outcome. We are truly sorry.
Now, I want you to remember, guys, we've gone over this note, but to a lesser degree. And the one thing I've said there is language can be very important in dealing with writings such as this, okay? Let me point out that the writer chose buried with nature as opposed to buried in nature. The difference for me is how I picture it when I hear them separately, okay? Buried in nature, it makes me picture someone having already dug a hole in the earth, placing her in, and then covering it by shoveling dirt on top, okay? But when I hear buried with nature, I actually think of them just
dumping,
leaving Nancy on the ground and just basically covered her up with some vegetations that they would find
shrubbery,
just to keep her out of sight. Now, please forgive me if I'm going to be a bit graphic, but if they did strip Nancy of everything that she was wearing and just left her there, that the wildlife would do the rest, right? With nature. They even ended note number 2 with a literal heartfelt apology, which makes me wonder if, Savannah and Annie's letters in that first plea video really did get to the kidnappers. Maybe it was Cameron's blank stare into the camera, right, that really pierced into these cold-hearted souls. They suddenly developed a conscience. The note also ended with, nothing you could have done could have changed the outcome, and that we are truly sorry. Here's what I tend to believe now that I have given this much thought, that this ransom note is really from someone in the know, but it is fake in its sentiment, meaning the writer did know what Nancy's fate was always going to be, but felt the need to risk the FBI being able to track their email just so that they could inform the family that Nancy was dead, to also absolve the family of any guilt and to leave a heartfelt apology. Now, as I'm putting it to you that way, not a chance, right? A real kidnapper, when everything goes wrong, when your target happens to die, I'm thinking they just go quiet, okay? This juice is definitely not worth.
Well, and people pointed out the apology is really weird, because why would they not think going into a woman's home at 2 a.m, standing over her bed and taking her in that getup isn't going to end her life? And they didn't realize her health was as precarious. She's 84. What the heck?
The squeeze if your only prize is lethal injection. And I'm going to give you guys a fun fact that Arizona just executed a man this previous May for setting another man on fire, who subsequently died. So we know that Arizona has brought back the death penalty. So whoever the culprit is in this case is actually staring not only at life, but possible execution. Now, before we move on to the February 7th sibling plea video, the second one, I want us to think about the usage of we. In both notes, the writer wants us to know that this is at least a two-person effort. But why? Almost makes me want to revisit and think through the lone wolf theory once again. Why does this writer want us to believe that this is a group effort? Okay. Now, like I've said, I already don't believe the sentiment is genuine. So I'm thinking the almost gratuitous usage of the word we is something to throw us off, in the same vein as, the unnecessary nature of the second note at all of it, right? It's the second note should not have happened. Just like the porch guy should have never been on the porch. Anyways, moving on to February 7th, okay? The family is going to release their second plea video.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us.
Oh my God, Crime After Dark. I think I need to have you on the show. Oh my gosh, horrible. That is stunning. I'm so sorry. Oh, thank God you're okay. I know, but that's horrible. Oh my God.
so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
And the tone has shifted, okay, from hopeful to pretty much dejected, as if they were accepting that Nancy was gone. And so looking back now, okay, with knowledge of these notes almost in full, I mean, it fits perfectly the progression of their plea videos along with the ransom notes. Now, if you're in the camp that multiple people are carrying this caper out, then there is definitely a weak link in this caper, don't you think? And, you know, whoever it was that wrote note number 2, you know, why is there such a different tone from note number 1? I'll just say, if there are 2 writers, then I think.
Okay, hold on a minute. Peace, you were kidnapped too? What? Okay, hold on a minute here. How in the world? Okay, yeah, I need to do a call-in show. Are you guys seriously? Email me at crimecrunchies@gmail.com. I'm stunned. I'm speechless, and I have a big mouth, and I'm speechless. Hold on a second. How in the world? Please email me at crimecrunchies@gmail.com. Yeah, what are the odds? I don't need. I think people need to know your story because you're a part of our community. You don't have to be on camera. We can just have you guys join, and you don't have to turn your camera on. We can hear you. Dang. Because, yeah, I don't know. I think that we're just, wow. Thank gosh you guys are both there. Yeah, so hi, MView. We just learned that we have 2 Crime Crunchy members, Crime After Dark HQ and Peace of Jesus to all. They've both been kidnapped. You were along with your mom and sister. Okay, that's still terrifying. That's, I mean, oh my gosh. And if you don't want to talk about it, I get it. But we are very interested to hear because, you know, there is a way that people kidnap. And the only reason why I think this would be useful for this, not because it's a horrible thing, but how a real kidnapping goes, it kind of shows that this is not a real kidnapping, that this whole thing's been wonky. Anyway, if you're interested in doing a call-in show, I think we all would love to hear about your stories. Yeah, it is a kidnapping. That is a kidnapping. They have exactly. It totally is a kidnapping. When you're held against your will, yes. Yeah, and this is targeted. So anyway, if you're interested in telling your stories, you're more than welcome to. We could schedule something and just do a call-in show, no camera, crimecrunchies at gmail.com. And that's horrible. We're here with you guys.
The writer of note number 1 better be watching the writer of note number 2 like a hawk, because I can only imagine that growing a conscience in their line of work is bad for business. Writer number 2 really needs to remember that if one of them is capable of burying an 84-year-old woman with nature, who's to say that this person won't bury them as well? Now, I just want to go back and touch on when Savannah told the entire world that she tends to believe that the notes are real, which makes me and a lot of people believe that she knows these notes are real. And I figure that might not be what the FBI wanted Savannah to even mention. If note number 1 really did reveal information that only the culprit would know, then they know, the insiders know that they are communicating with the killer. They just have to keep it on the low. So how does this come full circle back to what we discussed at the top of the video? Okay. So besides the culprit or the culprits themselves, think to yourself, who are the only other people in the world that would have the same information that only the culprit would know? My name is Monks. Now go protect the ones that you
Kitty
love
cat.
and love the ones that protect.
All right. Well, that is, I think that was a great video, but I think the biggest thing tonight is that we learned that we have 2 crime crunchies that had both been kidnapped. Crime After Dark and Peace of Jesus to All. Ay, ay, ay. Thank goodness you're both here with us. But yeah, I mean, just hearing your story, I think would be very interesting, because it just, again, I think it would reiterate how this doesn't feel like a real kidnapping. Yeah, and no worries, no worry. It's very painful. We certainly don't want anybody to say anything that you don't want to. We don't want to push. We're very sensitive. So we don't have to, of course. I just thought, people care about you. So, okay. Yes, and thank you everybody for your comments and for sharing. Okay, so thank you again, you guys, for watching. I love having watch parties with you. Please, again, go in and like Monk's video, give him a view, so that I don't want to steal his views. Go back and give him some love as well. Thank you to Monks Intrigue for letting us, appreciate what you do for everybody. And thank you everyone for hanging out with me on this Sunday night. I really appreciate it. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe, like, hit the bell. I appreciate it. Again, if you guys are here late and you remember, since I've got 8 members now, I've added some emojis, some fun emojis, including one about Miracle Whip not being mayonnaise. Okay, I had so many people commenting about mayonnaise. It's so funny. And then I have some badges for people who are for longevity. So there's a month emoji or month badge, and Joe, you've got a 2-month badge now. And so I have members. I need to make sure you guys get a little fun, a little shout out. So thanks to everyone again. All right. I hope you have a wonderful night. I will catch you again on the flip side. Toodaloo.